Hey, how's it going YouTube? Raj here. I hope all of you out there are doing well. In today's video, I'll be talking about a new release, or definitely a relatively new release, from the designer brand of Cartier, who are probably more famous for their jewelry, but have a good history with fragrances. And this one is a flanker to Déclaration. The fragrance I'll be reviewing today, or giving you my thoughts on anyway, is Haute Fraîcheur. Now, I have worn this a couple of times. I got my hand on a tiny little 2 ml sample, and you know, you can only wear so much. I've probably worn this like 2 or 3 times, but just about enough to give you kind of my early thoughts on this fragrance. So let's get into some of the details. You know, this says, according to Fragrantica, it was released at the back end of 2021, but I think towards the end of 2021. I didn't really start seeing this until in the shops until earlier this year. So yeah, it's been out for, let's say, 6 months approximately. Perfumer for this one is Mathilde Laurent. She is the in-house perfumer for Cartier, and I was just having a look actually at her portfolio on Fragrantica. And one thing I didn't realize, which is kind of interesting, is that she hasn't worked for many other houses. She's created about 50 odd fragrances for Cartier, a few for Guerlain, and then one other brand that I haven't heard of. But normally what you'll see with a lot of perfumers is that they will work for multiple different brands, typically before becoming an in-house perfumer. So this is an interesting one. This particular version is a flanker to the 1998 release, which is, from what I can tell, actually just the Déclaration line as a whole tends to be quite popular. Like, I do hear a lot of positive things about it. That came out in '98. Jean-Claude Ellena was the perfumer. I was never really a massive fan of the original Déclaration. I just found that smoked cardamom, that spiciness, that kind of smoky leather birch, a little bit too much. But what about this one? Let's get into this one. Mathilde Laurent, actually, I mentioned Guerlain. She did create one of my favorite fragrances, which is Herba Fresca, and that's a fresh fragrance. And she created a few others for the Acqua Allegoria line, which came out in 1999. So a little bit of experience she has with like fresh fragrances, I would say. This one, in terms of the note breakdown, it's quite simple, and I think actually this fragrance is fairly simple from start to finish. Citrus leaf in the opening. My interpretation of citrus leaf is probably something like petitgrain, which is the steam distillation that you get from the twigs and the leaves of the orange flower tree. And of course, the orange flower itself is used to get neroli and orange blossom. In the mid, of course, cardamom and cedar. So still sticking to a little bit of that DNA with the original Déclaration, but it does go in a very different direction. Performance, let's start with the more technical side of things. So notes, and now the performance. Performance is not exactly, this is not a beast mode fragrance. This is something that will last on your skin 3 or 4 hours. That's how it lasted on my skin. On the lower side, I wouldn't mind it going up a little bit more and having a little bit more of a presence. Obviously, you can respray if you want to. I'm never really a fan of respraying during the day. Like, I like to get towards the end of the day and then spray it on again. That's fine. But I want a little bit more performance from my fragrances, even if they are fresher ones. This one didn't quite get to that kind of lower threshold, but not terrible. Yeah, it feels like a very easy to wear kind of fragrance in lots of different occasions, typically lending itself better to spring and summer, but probably an all year round scent. Now, if you're a fan of the original Déclaration, and even though I don't like it, I do have a little bit of experience with it. I think if you're like a collector of the Déclaration line, and there have been many flankers actually, you'll probably get this one just for the sake of collecting. If you want something that is close to the original, this is quite a far departure from that. This is a very, very watered down version of the original, but going in a more fresh, uplifting sort of territory. So fans of the original who want something similar to that might be a little bit disappointed, but I don't know, let me know your thoughts. What I get with this fragrance, especially in that opening, is something that is comparable to I would say it's something that I've noticed, notes that I've noticed in Guerlain Homme. That one immediately came to mind. It's icy, it's a little bit cooling, it's got that wonderful lime, watery petitgrain note. Petitgrain is actually a really lovely ingredient. If you can get like the essential oil or a fragrance that has that as a dominant note, or at least comes through quite strongly, I would say check it out, because it doesn't have the sharpness of citrus actually. It has like a watery, citrusy, minty kind of feel, which I really like. And that comes through so nicely in this scent. It reminds me of like a glass of ice with a bit of cucumber, a bit of mint, but there's no like obviously mintiness in this fragrance, but a hint of it. And then you get the kind of DNA from Declaration, where you've got those warmed up spices, slightly kind of cardamom pods, like warmed up on a pan, and then just dipped into this glass of ice and cooled down. So you get that kind of spicy, dry woodiness that from the cedar and the warmth from the spices, mixing with this kind of icy freshness, this watery citrus sort of accords coming together really nicely, and just diluting it all down and giving you just a hint of that spicy woodiness, which is quite nice. So it's quite simple. It's a citrus, spicy, dry woods kind of fragrance, and that's pretty much what you'll get from start to finish. It smells uplifting. It's one of those where it can be like a tonic, like a pick-me-up kind of scent, and I think it works well. I think it's well made. I think sometimes with simple fragrances, what can happen is that if you use bad ingredients, they can become very quickly exposed. So I think this is really nicely done in the sense that the ingredients are quality, and they're allowed space to breathe and shine, and they don't come across as cheap. This is not a deodorant kind of smelling kind of fragrance, shower gel smelling, a kind of like cheap smelling aquatic kind of scent. It's pretty good. But to be honest, I think you can do a lot better for your money. This is not a cheap fragrance. It might become a little bit more discounted as the years go by, but I can't help but feel that there are fragrances that do the same job for like a fraction of the price. Actually, I'm not going to mention like specifics, because I'm not like there are many fresh, cheap smelling fragrances that are affordable, you know. But you know, I mentioned what did I mention? Guerlain Homme, that has a similarity. This also reminded me of a little bit of a fragrance from Armani, which I don't really know if it's still made nowadays, called Eau d'Arôme. I think that's how you say it. A little bit of that. There was some similarities. It's probably something that you might have smelled before, but still good, still worth checking out, I would say. And yeah, I think it's a good scent. Would I buy it? I'm not completely convinced I would, but there you go. Guys, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this fragrance, which I'm going to give a rating of, give a 7 out of 10. I think that's a decent score. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Also, you know, I've been putting out a few more videos recently, so check those out if you haven't done so already. I'm on Instagram as well if you want to check me out there too. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye.